Nightmare number 1 already happened. Nightmare number 2 just became more likely. Say it's not so. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube, so thank you. And please subscribe to the show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app and head to FanDuel.com to get started. Today's show, we're going to look at what the Jazz will do the rest of the way. We'll analyze the Jazz trade deadline, what took place, what didn't take place, and why. And we will look at nightmare number 2. Cooper Flagg to the Spurs. We are already dealing with nightmare number 1, which is that Luka Doncic and the West is as formidable as it's ever been because Rob Pelinka fleeced Nico Harrison, and somehow the Lakers got one of the top 5 players for the next decade in the NBA. We're already dealing with that. Not happy about it. Don't believe in the conspiracy theories. Don't believe in this. Don't believe in that. It actually all stems back to the fact that Anthony Davis worked his way to New Orleans, from New Orleans to LA, and that LA started there. But the second worst scenario I could possibly ever imagine is the Spurs, who I don't hate the way I hate the Lakers, but I'm certainly jealous of that they get every break imaginable. They're thought they just get everything goes their way. They're probably good people. They run their organization seemingly correctly. But they just became much more likely to get Cooper Flagg than they ever have been. See, inexplicably, in the midst of the trade deadline, the Atlanta Hawks decided to dismember their basketball team when they don't own their first-round draft pick. The Atlanta Hawks made 2 of bizarre trades that's only value seems to be opening up cap space for the offseason for free agents that I can't figure out who they are. So maybe their front office, the general rule that their front office, that someone's, as I always say, that if the rule is if you're banking on someone being an idiot, there's probably a different reason. Okay? But the Atlanta Hawks made 2 deals. We don't need to dig into them that much, but they just quite simply, they traded DeAndre Hunter, who's probably their second best player right now, for Karis LeVert and George Niang. Not great players. DeAndre Hunter's better. They traded Bogdan Bogdanovic for Terrence Mann and Bones Highland. Again, Bogdan Bogdanovic is a much better player than Terrence Mann, and certainly a better player than, and weirdly, they gave 3 second-round picks. I'm not here to analyze the trades. They're bad, but I'm not here to analyze the trades. Atlanta's only explanation of doing this is that they've cleared some space from their books. But the fact is that Atlanta also is without their truly second best player, Jalen Johnson, for the season. And the Atlanta Hawks are going to start losing lots and lots of basketball games. They already have. They've lost 9 of 10 and just got a lot worse. Well, guess what? The San Antonio Spurs have the Atlanta Hawks draft pick. Right now, the Atlanta Hawks are sitting in 10th position in Tankathon. They're going to finish 7th. The San Antonio Spurs are going to be in the 7th draft position. And if the San Antonio Spurs sit right where they are right now, which is 11th, but I think they'll be 10th, they will have a 10.5% chance of getting the number one pick of the draft, which is the fifth best odds of anyone in the league. The San Antonio Spurs will have done the equivalent of being the fifth worst team in the league, because you will take the 3% chance that San Antonio has for the number one pick, plus the 7.5% chance, or even possibly the 9% chance that Atlanta's going to have for the first pick. And they're going to have between a 10.5 and a 12% chance. It is the equivalent of having the fifth best odds to get Cooper Flagg. No! Don't let it happen. We're going to go through an entire season of this. And if we execute it correctly, which is going to be very difficult down the stretch, we'll end up with a 14% chance. And the Spurs, who've just added De'Aaron Fox, because Atlanta inexplicably just tore down their roster in the midst of having no draft pick. Portland's going to catch him. Chicago's going to catch him. Philadelphia's going to catch him. I don't think Brooklyn's going to catch Atlanta. Atlanta's going to be in the 7th draft position. And the Spurs have the pick, unprotected, for DeJounte Murray. Nightmare number 2 could happen. Cooper Flagg to the Spurs. If not Cooper Harp, but then even the next thing. The Spurs are going to have a 55% chance for a top 4 pick. Guess what? That's better odds than having the worst record in the NBA. The Spurs are going to end up with a 55% chance, 55.9 to be exact. 55.9% chance to have a top 4 pick. If we finish with one of the worst 3 records, we have a 52.1% chance. So they actually going to have a better chance for Dylan Harper, a better chance for Ace Bailey, a better chance for whoever you think the 4th best player is, if you think it's the Illinois kid, if you think it's the Baylor. The Spurs are going to have a better chance than we are. And they already have Victor Wembanyama, and they already have De'Aaron Fox, and they're the Spurs. And the only thing worse would be if they're the Lakers. Because I'm jealous of the Spurs. I hate the Lakers. The Lakers, as we talked about yesterday, and the everydayers know this, are the team that literally goes step in the ass. The rest of us walk outside, try to find a lawn, rub our foot, try to get the smell off, try to get the poop off the bottom of our shoe. We walk around, we do it for like a long time. It kind of comes off, it kind of doesn't. It gets in the grooves. And you walk around for the rest of the day wondering if everybody can smell your foot. And somehow the freaking Lakers walk outside and they rub their foot on this magical grass and it just disappears. And every one of their mistakes and all that they stepped in goes away. Well, the Spurs are pretty close. And they now are going to have as good a chance for Cooper Flagg and a better chance for Dylan Harper and a better chance for Ace Bailey and a better chance for whoever the 4th best player is than any of us. Because Atlanta, inexplicably at the trade deadline, decided to dismember their roster when they don't own their own pick. What are we doing? Jazz trade deadline. They show an astute understanding of how the game works in a mundane fashion. I'll explain next on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Hyundais, it's an incredible lineup of cars. I've ended up with 3 of them, frankly. We bought 2 of the Santa Fe's, and we bought a as well as buying Ionic 5. So I'm not telling you to go do something that I haven't already done. And I've done them all with Murdoch and been very, very, very pleased with my experience that I've had with the Murdochs. That's their goal. They want you to have a no regrets experience. They want to make sure that you feel as though you're part of the community and that the Murdochs are as well. And the Hyundai lineup of cars are absolutely fabulous. I got 2 guys yesterday that reached out. We set them up over in Linden with Jake Banks, their sales guy there, gives them the VIP experience. And we're going to make sure that you get the VIP experience as well. So if you're heading over to look for a car right now, why don't you stop by Murdoch's? We'll give you a VIP experience. Make sure you check in with us and have me set you up with that. So you walk in, there's no mystery about what's going on, and you get right away, you get the treatment you deserve by being a Locked On everydayer. So email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com so I can give you the Murdoch Hyundai VIP experience over at Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show is also brought to you by Robinhood Gold, the new gold standard. Sign up now for Robinhood Gold and get the life that you deserve. With Robinhood Gold, you can enjoy VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhoodgold.com. Investing involves risk, rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for $1 for your first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18 of 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Thank you very much to Robinhood Gold, giving you the chance to have the elite exclusive privileges. Robinhood Gold, robinhood.com/gold. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We have the ultimate number one-stop NBA newsletter for you. It's called Locked. Well, it's based on here. It gives you your favorite team, which is hopefully the Jazz. It gives you a national article by Mike Schreier and Katie Heindel every single day. And it gives you fantasy breakdown, plus all the links to the most important stories of the day. That's everything you need. One-stop NBA newsletter. So go check it out. Go to lockedondaily.com and sign up for your favorite team's newsletter. All right. The West landscape has changed. And we'll get to that in a second, but let's talk about what the Jazz did. What the Jazz did is they moved paper. And it's not exciting, but they actually used a new rule where you can actually bring salaries, aggregate salaries in the new collective bargaining agreement into exceptions. There's nothing wildly crazy. We didn't walk around, the big move we made was we took the worst of our 3 first-round picks and got a Phoenix Suns unprotected pick in 2031. And you've made another bank move on that piece of paper is better than the piece of paper that you gave them. You gave them three small pieces of paper, and you got one big one in the 31 draft pick. And your belief is that over time, that value will be higher than the 3 late first-round picks that you moved. Okay? So that's the first move. It's a worthwhile gamble. I think on paper, I think the 2031 pick and the 3 first-round picks were traded for each other, so by definition, they have equal value. For the Jazz specifically, considering the fact that it's the lesser of their 3 picks in each of those seasons, it has less value to the Jazz than it does to somebody else. And so, therefore, the trade makes a lot of sense for the Jazz to take a 2031 player that's unprotected with a chance of an upside on 3 picks that had no upside, because they're by definition the third worst of those picks. Or, the only scenario is if they're and would be the third, in theory, should be the third best player drafting that year, which is hard to put on a roster. So That trade makes all the sense in the world because of the fact that while I think the value of the two is the same, by definition, they were just traded for each other. That means their value is the same. The value for the Jazz is higher to have that long-term pick. Okay. Second thing the Jazz did is they facilitated deals with their exceptions and their space. They started this by they started by trading Drew Eubanks and Patty Mills, and they got a second-round pick for that to take on P.J. Tucker's contract and Mo Bamba. Okay? At that point, P.J. Tucker is literally a piece of paper. In the phrase of the world, you could call it the red paperclip if you want to look that up. So it's literally a piece of paper. Drew Eubanks was very well done. Backup center. We needed it. Gave us some experience. Gave us a player who could play. Signed him for enough money that you could move him. Like there's a value to signing a player to $5 to $7 million rather than just an minimum exception. So he makes because you're moving pieces of paper with dollar values on them. So the Jazz go and take P.J. Tucker. They then move P.J. Tucker for Dennis Schroeder, pieces of paper. They're all just pieces of paper. And they get another second-round draft pick. Okay. So the Jazz have taken Drew Eubanks, who served their purpose, got P.J. Tucker and a second-round draft pick because now they've taken that piece of paper and traded for another piece of paper with the exact same value because we're not going to use them as players and got a second-round draft pick. And then they took that piece of paper and traded it again for another second-round draft pick and K.J. Martin. So the Jazz took Drew Eubanks, really, and his $5 million contract, because Patty Mills was a minimum contract, could have been anyone. So Drew Eubanks, $5 million contract. They made a bet. He would have trade value at the deadline, and they were right. And they took Drew Eubanks' contract, piece of paper, and turned it into 3 second-round draft picks and K.J. Martin. It's pretty good. So here's my take on this. From a fan standpoint, you're not buying a K.J. Martin shirt, and you're not buying a second-round draft pick jersey. I got it. It's pretty mundane. You're not going to the office and high-fiving Steve down the road or Jorge down the road and saying, wow, we got 3 seconds for a piece of paper. I got it. But it does show you that your front office has a level of competency that they understand the game they're playing and how they're doing it. And that's actually pretty important. Because there's a few teams out there right now that I don't think are sitting around thinking that their front office, giving away 3 second-round draft picks with the best player in a trade, necessarily are on top of it. Things don't feel very good in Phoenix right now, where they suddenly had Kevin Durant out there being traded, and then he didn't get traded, and now Ramona Shelburne is on ESPN saying that it's a toxic environment at their shooter house. Doesn't feel very good in Dallas right now, needless to say. I'm not sure it feels very good in Charlotte right now, where they traded their Mark Williams for, I guess they decided they like Dalton Knecht better. So that's really what you learned this. Now, why didn't the Jazz trade John Collins, Collin Sexton, or Jordan Clarkson? So the first thing I think that's really important on all three of those plays is none of them are toxic. They're all good teammates. They're all good members of the organization. They all set pretty good examples of what you want for your players and your franchise. And so there wasn't a like Yusuf Nurkic here in Phoenix need to get somebody out of the building. The second thing is that just honestly on John Collins, as good as he's been, his contract's a lot. You have to bring back something similar in money. It's just hard to find a dance partner on that one. And if you even look at some of the teams that like made some of these deals, like Phoenix trading Yusuf Nurkic, they also saved themselves a ton of money next year on that deal. So John Collins wasn't, some of those people are trading equal money, don't want all the money back. So that's, I think, what you're really seeing there. The other one on John Collins is, Frank, is, we got him for free. right? We got him for a second-round draft pick and Rudy Gay. He's been really good. But that was his market value 18 months ago. It has changed, but not as much as it probably should have. For Jordan Clarkson, I kind of have the same thing to say. Like, it's been a lot of trade windows here where Jordan Clarkson's name has been mentioned and he hasn't been traded. He's a unique talent that fits into rosters in a different way that might not be the kind of player you're trying to add at a trade deadline to have him assimilate into your roster. And Collin, I got to be honest with you, I'm just really surprised. Maybe the sprained ankle did it. Collin, or maybe we're reluctant. He's 25 years old. But Collin really should be able to help teams. He just can put buckets in. I got, like, there's all sorts of warts, right? I got it. I'm not, like, ignorant to our own players in the way the league views players. The dude can put the ball in the basket, and when it really comes down to the end of it, that's what this game's about, is putting the ball in the basket. So can John. So I'm a little surprised. John, I'm not, because John's contract is big enough that it's a complicated deal, and Collins is not that much smaller. But I'm a little surprised that the league didn't play along. But clearly the league didn't play along. And, frankly, player value went way down in this. Right? De'Aaron Fox went for 2 first-round draft picks, not 3, 2. And Brandon Ingram went for 1. And Luka Doncic went for Anthony Davis and 1. And Mark Williams went for Dalton Connect and 1. So, as I suspected when we talked about the trade deadline for all of the days coming forward, I did not suspect that there were going to be first-round draft picks moved for our players. And then at that point, you're just taking salary, you're clogging up space, you're doing stuff, you might as well wait it out because they're not toxic. The future of the West. What do the Jazz do about, quite frankly, the fact that they're too good for the next 40 games? Next on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Game Time. If you're looking for the big event, the concert, the game, whatever it is, maybe it's theater, download the Game Time app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But I'm telling you what, if you want a ticketing app, Game Time checks all of the boxes because the new Game Time Picks does all the work for you, curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. Game Time Picks has been the answer for me for whatever deal I'm trying to find, whatever ticket, whatever city I'm in. Super deal at the prime seat, also available for you. Great to see. Seat View is the game changer because it tells you exactly what you're going to see in an arena you don't know, which is usually the case for me. And, of course, you flip on the toggle and you see your all-in pricing, so you're not surprised. You're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem your code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It's game time. What time is it? It's game time. So the future of the West is daunting, right? So the Lakers are going to be good for the next decade. Oklahoma City feels like they're actually okay with Shea. He does not seem like he's about to, ask out. They should be good for the next decade. San Antonio is going to be good for the next decade, and if nightmare scenario 2 comes in, my goodness gracious. So that's, and then Memphis and then Denver's probably good for the next 5 to 6, 7 years. Unless they do something crazy with Jokic. So that, to me, is the West now. Memphis is really, really good, but let's see. Houston's really, really good and in position to join that top 4. I don't know that I think Minnesota's in that position to join that for a long term. That Anthony Edwards, the whole situation there feels a little combustible. And I don't think Golden State's going to make a little run here for a little while, but that's it. To me, it's when the Jazz start thinking about trying to build this thing up in whatever years it's going to be, maybe 4 or 5 years from now, on the climb up, that's our competition. Oklahoma City, a 30-year-old Luka, a 28-year-old Victor, a 30-year-old Shea, and probably a 35-year-old Jokic. Pretty daunting. The one thing I would say on the Jazz, I think you have to view us, and it's clear, and I think this is how they have to view it, that we're in a long rebuild. We're in the climb. And that probably means next year we're playing for draft position again, particularly with our pick protected Oklahoma City. And so as long as that's, if you're clear that that's the case, so we're doing this year, getting a draft pick, doing it next year, getting a draft pick. And then my opinion is the year after that, you're now playing the 2 draft picks a lot. So by definition, you're not very good. And you're taking another draft pick. So we have a 2025 draft pick, a 2026 draft pick, and a 2027 draft pick that hopefully are all top 5-ish that we're going to use to build and climb this thing back up and then figure out which of these pieces, Walker, Keontae, Isaiah, fit around that. Lowry. And so you start to try to, you're going to try to improve, as I've said, you've drafted in 25, you've drafted in 26, in 27. So the 27-28 season is kind of the third year for your first draft pick, and you're getting better. And the 28-29 season is the fourth and third year. And then the 30-31 season is kind of when all 3 of those guys, hopefully 2 of the 3 hit, are on their way. And but at that point, you're facing an experienced Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. You're facing, it's a long way away, but you're facing a 35-year-old Jokic. You're facing a 30-year-old Luka. And, we'll see where Houston is at that standpoint, at that point in time. It's going to be, yeah. And you got Oklahoma City that still should have a lot of talent, but obviously there's a lot that could go on between now and then. The one that's interesting for me in the immediate time is when we play our guys, we're pretty good. So if you put our starting main guys on the floor, if you have Collin Sexton, Walker Kessler, or I'll go by position. If you have Collin Sexton, Lowry Markkanen, John Collins, and Walker Kessler on the floor together. Those guys all on the floor together, we're plus 7.1. That's about the 5th or 6th best team in the NBA. If we did that for an entire game. Now, if we take one of them off the floor, we collapse. Kind of. There's some exceptions. John and Collin together actually hold up pretty well without Walker and Lowry. John, Walker, and Collin hold up pretty well without Lowry. But overall, like Lowry, Walker, and Collin without John are -8. All of them off the floor were -13. John on the floor without the other 3 were -13. Collin on the floor without the other guys were -8. Walker on the floor without the other guys is -11. So, like, we pull one of the Jenga blocks out, and we do fall apart pretty quickly. But this is going to be the interesting dance for us for the rest of the way. Because when we have our guys, which are now still all on our roster, we're pretty good. And, let's be honest, at this point of the year, the intention is not to win a lot of games. The intention is to develop talent. So we're going to have to do some interesting roster management the rest of the way. When Lowry, John, and Walker are all on the floor together without Collin, which is where we are right now with his sprained ankle. Collin was not moving very well getting on the plane yesterday. He has still got a sprained ankle. Like he's not Collin Sexton running around normal, is what I'm saying. We're plus 5.5. The interesting one, by the way, is that John and Walker together is plus 7.8. So this is going to be the challenge of the next part of the season for us is how do we landscape this, get everyone their opportunities. We also have too many players now. So if Collin plays and Keontae plays and Isaiah plays and Jordan plays, then it's hard for Bryce to play. And there's no place for Cody to play. So we're going to have to play some really interesting dance for the rest of the year this year. For the long-term future, what I think the trade deadline tells us is we didn't pivot. Like we're in this long-term game that I talked about of this climb unless we pivot at some point in time. I presented the idea of pivoting partially to go get Zion Williamson. You all were not so big on that, by the way. If you would like the final results of our poll questions from yesterday, the poll question is, should the Jazz trade for Zion Williamson? 54% said no, Locke, you're insane. 31% said yes, it's worth the risk, and 15% said yes, but I still think Locke is insane. So 54 to 46 said no, the Jazz should not trade Zion Williamson. I asked how many of you thought the Jazz should have taken the package for Walker Kessler. 92% of you said no, Walker was too good for the trade package the Lakers got for Mark Williams. So there we go. The real story and the bummer is we probably actually all agree that the Jazz didn't have any deals to get done, and we're probably okay with it, but that's so boring. All right, that is Locked On Jazz today. Please tell me that Cooper Flagg's not going to the Spurs. I'm going to lose sleep over this concept. Please tell me it's not true. Please tell me. Have a great weekend. Ron and I will be back with you for Postcast tonight and on Saturday. If you have not followed me on socials, it's DLock09. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, everything. I'll try to give you more updates. Keep the news coming that way. Posting shows, reports, shoot-around reports, all sorts of those things. Try to up the game a little bit here as we wrap up the season. On that for you, LockedOnDaily.com gets you the #1 NBA newsletter. And follow and subscribe to the program so you know whenever we let an episode, and hit the bell button on YouTube so you get notified. Now we send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel on Locked On NBA. If you're on audio, check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night at Locked On NBA.